Good Monday afternoon to you. Hope you had a great weekend. Thanks for joining us on Sports4CLE. The bye week is officially passed for the Browns, and they're getting ready to face the Baltimore Ravens again Sunday, 1 o'clock. We will talk plenty of Browns, plenty of Ravens. Kevan Arnold from the Voice of the Land podcast will join us a little bit later in the show. We begin by talking Browns. Some news out in Berea today. Jacob Phillips designated to return from injured list. That second-year linebacker means he can begin practicing. Kevin Stefanski talked to the media today, said we'll see, wait and see how that goes. Let's welcome in Dan Labbe, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. So, Dan, some interesting things yesterday. Bengals lost to the Chargers and didn't look great doing so. Joe Burrow struggled for the most part. And then the Ravens lose to the Steelers. They have the potential to tie the game up, but they go for two and try to get the win. And the play call was pretty good. They just didn't execute it. But very interesting call by John Harbaugh to go for two and kind of go for the throat, if you will, with the Steelers there in that game.
Yeah, John Harbaugh has become quite the gambler, ever since Lamar Jackson took over. Loves going for it on fourth down. And when he decided to go for two, I respected the decision. And, honestly, the play worked. The play was there. TJ Watt kind of disrupted things a little bit, so the throw was just a little bit wide. Mark Andrews probably should have been able to haul that in. He's made spectacular catches. I mean, Browns fans saw one a few weeks ago. He's got that capability, but, the Ravens were that close to maybe finishing off the Steelers, and instead, it's kind of just chaos. And you mentioned the Bengals. Now Joe Burrow has something going on with his pinky finger, and that was a game that they had opportunities to go win. But, we see Jamar Chase basically bobble a ball away for an interception. Joe Mixon put a ball on the ground for a pick six. Nobody really wants to go win this division, it seems like. Or, the teams that try, like the Ravens, they come up just short. So this thing is still pretty wide open. Yeah,
and the Ravens also lost Marlon Humphrey for the season, a torn pectoral muscle, and he is definitely out for the season. John Harbaugh confirmed that. Let's take a look at the AFC playoff picture since you mentioned it. And the Browns at 6-6 are 11th, but as you and I talked about before we got rolling on air, they're 2 games out of first, and nobody in the AFC strikes fear in the hearts of anybody. I look at the skill position players for the Patriots, and it's like it's not one of those things where you walk in and you go, man, I don't want to face them. There's a little bit of that with the Chiefs, but you have to play defense too. So as much of a struggle as it has been for the Cleveland Browns, and as inconsistent as they have been, everything's still in front of them. The question is, can they string together 4 or 5 really good games of football?
Yeah, unfortunately, the Browns have fallen victim to what every other team has fallen victim to, just wild inconsistency. And you mentioned New England. They're probably the hottest team right now, them or Kansas City. But there's so much football left. We've seen how that can change. Tennessee, they might be getting Julio Jones back at least, but they're still playing without A.J. Brown. And, of course, Derrick Henry. If he comes back this year, it might not be till the playoffs. Baltimore's injuries. Kansas City, like I said, is hot. We'll see how long that sustains. There's just so many flawed teams. There's an opportunity there still for the Browns, but now they've got to make their move because, Buffalo has that potential to get hot and reestablish themselves as one of the best teams in the conference. Indianapolis, all of a sudden, has come out of nowhere, and they're a scary team. Obviously, Carson Wentz has his flaws, but they're a scary team if you have to face them in Indianapolis, say in a playoff game. I don't know if they'll win the South or not, but they're going to have that opportunity. So, and now the Dolphins are coming up behind you really quickly too. They've won a bunch in a row, and they've got their bye week this week. So they're getting into this mix. So if the Browns don't figure out a way to win this division, the wild card is going to be really messy. And this is just going to be a sprint to the finish line, and there's still 5 weeks left.
So Kevin Stefanski met with media today, talked about the work that the Browns did put in during the bye week, specifically on the offensive side of the ball.
It's always a good process, Tom. I think you do that self-scout. Really, you do it weekly in some ways, but when you get an opportunity, whether it's after the Thursday night game or on your bye week, that's when you really dive into it. And I think offense, defense, special teams, you dissect it every which way. And you look at it from schematic angles, you look at it from personnel angles, play calling, how, certain decisions we make. You just look at all of it and say, what are we doing and what's working? And we really pull all of our resources and pull all that information together. And then you got to sift through it and find out where you can find some action items in terms of where you move going forward.
So, Dan, what do you think some of the tweaks on offense might look like? Any thoughts at all?
Well, one of them might. One of them might be a forced tweak. They obviously lost Harrison Bryant for a little while. He's got a high ankle sprain. Now, they haven't put him on IR yet, so maybe they're optimistic that he'll be back. But that can be an injury that lingers for a little while. So maybe they'll have to cut back a little bit on their use of 13 personnel, and maybe that'll force them to open up the offense a little bit. He's left it open what they're going to do at right tackle. It may not be Blake Hand, so they got to get that figured out. But I just think it's about getting Baker Mayfield back comfortable where he can move out of the pocket a little bit. Hopefully he's feeling a little healthier. Hopefully he's feeling a little more mobile, and figuring out how teams are kind of hemming him in and keeping him from doing what he does best, throwing on the move, getting out in space and making plays with his feet. Not necessarily as a runner all the time, but as a guy that can throw on the run. And if they can kind of get back to that, which is what they did last year after the bye week, that's when this passing offense can get going again.
And there are some attacks that you will be able to do that, especially the Ravens. They don't have nearly the defensive backfield they thought they were going to. As a matter of fact, they're about third or fourth in their cornerback rotation as their number one guy. So it will be interesting to see. All right, the final 5 games, what do they mean for the Browns' most important people? And I'm referring to an article that you wrote, and kind of take us through the thought process with that.
I just wanted to look at the 3 most important people in the organization. So I kind of deemed that as Kevin Stefanski, Andrew Berry, and Baker Mayfield, and kind of what these 5 games can mean for each of them and sort of where they stand, coming in. Now, look, I think Andrew Berry, you don't judge a GM on 5 games. I think there's no doubt that what he's shown you, his ability to build a team, to be a fixer of problems, I think he's got that ability. Kevin Stefanski, too, there have been flaws and there's criticisms, and certainly maybe he needs to evaluate some of the play calling or, maybe the system, make some tweaks to the system. But I think you have a guy in Kevin Stefanski who can become, almost a Mike Tomlin or a John Harbaugh for this team and kind of lead them forward. So it kind of came down to these 5 games are really important for Baker Mayfield. I don't know that it's due necessarily, but if he continues to struggle, whether it's the injuries or something else, then the Browns have to at least bring a plan B into the building next year. It doesn't mean they have to replace Baker, but they have to at least have a plan B ready to go. So I think he's the guy kind of those 3 who has the most on the line, over these final 5 games. Because if he gets hot and leads this team to the playoffs and maybe wins some playoff games, all of a sudden we're almost right back to where we were a year ago saying, hey, I think this guy might be the guy for sure.
That's what makes it so bizarre. The Browns haven't played well. Nobody would argue that. And if they do the things that people expected them to do in the final 5 games, nobody's going to remember that they were 6-6 if they make the playoffs and win a playoff game or 2. No one will remember the chaos of the first 12 weeks of this NFL season.
Yeah, I mean, that's the NFL, and that's kind of what you love about it. And even Tampa Bay last year, I don't remember exactly what their record was, but they had that late week bye. And they came out of the bye and they didn't lose another football game the rest of the way, and they went on to win the Super Bowl. I don't know when they went into that bye, people were saying, okay, that's the Super Bowl favorite. I mean, they didn't even have home field advantage throughout the playoffs. But they came out of the bye, they fixed things, and they never lost. And that's, I don't think the Browns are going to go to that extreme, but you can erase basically the first 12 games of the season with these last 5.
Dan Labbe, Browns beat reporter for The Plain Dealer and cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. We'll also hear from a couple of the Browns what they were thinking as they got back to work in Berea, looking at that Ravens game coming up Sunday. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. 6-6 Browns getting ready to take on the Baltimore Ravens, 1 o'clock on Sunday. Time for us to head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, this one on the state of the Browns after the bye week.
Hi, Dave. This is Ron Byer. Dave, I hope this past week every coach and every player did a lot of soul-searching to determine how they want the last 5 games to unfold. A season that started with a roster that made fans have high expectations. Coach Stefanski made mistake number 1 by not immediately molding the players into a team, by letting training camp and preseason go by without starting the process. This lack of team and self-discipline has led to a Jekyll and Hyde season so far, by players making too many foolish self-inflicted errors, of too many penalties, bad passes and drop passes, poor route running, and not utilizing good tackling technique, and in some cases, players worrying about themselves first instead of team. But because of Baltimore and Cincinnati losing, the Browns as a team have 5 games to justify this season with pride or finish it with failure. Self-discipline and desire is up to them. We all will be watching.
And Dan Labbe, some of the penalties are not really coaching. At this point, if you've made it to the NFL, you know where you're supposed to line up. It's just a matter of being present enough in what's going on to do it correctly. Some of the pre-snap things you can't pin on the coaching. It's not like they're not telling them how to line up. I guarantee you that.
Yeah, and listen, even guys should be used to all the shifting and motions and all of that by now. They should have a lot of that stuff down. So there is just some sloppiness there, but those are the penalties that kill you. You're going to get holding penalties. You're going to get pass interference penalties. You're going to have things like that happen. Some of them might be questionable. Some of them might be legitimate, but those, some guys call them combat penalties. You're going to get those types of things sometimes, and you have to deal with it. But the pre-snap stuff, the substitution stuff, those are the things that have to get cleaned up. And some of it's on coaching, but you're right. Some of it's on the players. Like, you've just got to get lined up properly and do what you're supposed to do, because Alex Van Pelt and Kevin Stefanski can't go out there, like a youth basketball team or a youth football team, and put you in position and then go run the play. You've got to do it yourself, and you've got to know what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, the preparation has to be there earlier in the week so that Sunday you just know where you're at. All right. Anthony Walker talked about the mindset of this team as they get ready for this game against the Ravens coming out of the bye.
You play the game to win. You play the game to go to the next level as far as playoffs, and give yourselves a chance to be in the final race. So, to, like you said, to say we still have a shot, we haven't played our best ball yet. We all know that, and to say we're still in the mix. Definitely, it just makes coming into practice a little bit more worth it. We understand that everything that all the goals that we had to start the season still out in front of us. We just got to take care of business.
And Dan, that's if they can kind of believe that, it's one thing to say, you really have to believe it. And they have not played like a playoff team yet. They just haven't. They've made the type of mistakes that playoff teams don't make.
You're right. I mean, this does not look like a playoff team right now. They can change that, like we talked about, over 5 games. And you mentioned that bye week. Anthony Walker said today he felt good to be back in that building with his teammates, guys you're around every day. I also think one of the things that helps you during the bye week, especially when it's this late, is guys kind of get to get away from each other. They get to go, some of them go back to LA or Miami or their college town or whatever, and they kind of get away from each other because you're around each other so much. You're traveling together, you're in the locker room together, you're in meetings together. It's been a tense season. It's been difficult. Maybe that'll help too, that they're going to come back a little bit refreshed and ready to play for each other again. Because like we've been saying all show, 6-6 isn't great, but you've got an opportunity to turn this thing around and really make a run here if you can just get it figured out and get that ball rolling in the right direction.
Yeah, and it wouldn't look at the way everybody thought this roster was constructed was one of the best in the NFL. It hadn't played like that. Still 5 weeks. If they play up to their capability, anything is possible. One guy that's played really well is Myles Garrett. Now, take a look at this tweet. He has the second highest win rate on pass rush this season, 28%. And again, if the defense, if you get Myles Garrett going and you get him creating some havoc, it just means good things, not only for the defense, but for the offense. Because if he's strip sacking, turning balls over, offense on short field, that type of thing tends to snowball in a hurry.
It does. And, with Myles, he's having this defensive player of the year type year. And TJ Watt is getting a bunch of the headlines today, and rightly so. He had a game-wrecking type of game against the Ravens on Sunday afternoon. But the other thing that Myles Garrett does really well is just creates pressure. Bill Belichick, I think it was before the Browns actually played the Patriots. He gave this long answer, a rare long Bill Belichick answer about how he values pressure more than sacks and guys who can create pressure. Myles is second among edge rushers, or maybe third among edge rushers in pressures this year. So that ability to maybe, even when he's not bringing the quarterback down, even when he's not turning the football over, which of course we know he can do, he creates so much pressure. It makes a guy move off his spot. It makes a guy uncomfortable. That's when you can start getting interceptions and start doing things on the back end because the ball's not going exactly where it needs to go.
We started to see a little bit of that against the Ravens as well. The 4 turnovers, Lamar Jackson was under constant pressure. Now, he's freakishly athletic enough that he turned a couple of them into ridiculous plays. So the Browns back at work in Berea this afternoon today, really getting ready for it. Here's what they had to say. That they're saying the right things. They want to get after that after the bye week. Here's Kevan Stefanski, Anthony Walker about the Browns getting back to work.
Most indicative, Tom, based on how the guys were today. I think they were really engaged. I think they were moving around, flying around the practice field today. So I feel like they recharged with their time away from here.
Yeah, you can see that practice today, just the energy. Guys just happy to be back in the building. You get so used to being around your teammates that when you're not around them, it's like you're missing something. You're missing a part of your life, and then you come back and it's like, you see it's like seeing your family again. You see your brothers and everything that you go to war with every day. You're in meetings with every day, and like you said, it's that sense of brotherhood, that sense of love that you miss for a couple of days. You used to seeing the same person every day. And now you go, 3-4 days and you don't see him. So I hit up John Johnson on Sunday, like, dude, when do you get back? Like,
and Dan, that's the one thing. As much as the offense has struggled, you haven't seen the offense and the defense kind of pointing fingers or any of that. That's been a really good sign, especially the last 3 or 4 games, minus the Bengals game, where the offense has struggled to score.
Yeah, and that's something that you always keep an eye on when, the defense is going out there and giving up 16 points to Lamar Jackson and, 6 of them are that crazy throw to Mark Andrews when they kind of did almost everything right, except for just make sure Andrews was covered on that scramble drill. It can get frustrating and your guys can start pointing fingers. And that's when that leadership has to be strong, not the coaching staff, but, guys like Anthony Walker and John Johnson and Myles Garrett. Those guys have to step up and be leaders. And, Anthony Walker said after the Steelers game on Halloween, when the Browns lost 15-10, the defense played great that game, but he said it wasn't good enough because they gave up 15 points and they lost. So they know they have to be better. And those leaders have to set that tone and say, hey, if the offense is only going to score 10, then we've got to give up 9. And when you do that, then you're not going to have the finger pointing, and you're not going to say, well, why isn't the offense doing this? It's not about the offense. It's what you do. Go do your job, and everything else will take care of itself.
Dan Labbe, Browns beat reporter for cleveland.com, and the Plain Dealer, and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout on the other side of the break. We will head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, another one about the season and kind of the longevity of the Browns. We will also take a look at the active scoring streak of fewer than 20 points for each of the NFL teams. A surprise in this one. We'll have that when we return to Sports4CLE. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine. Too late at night. But feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. Browns getting ready for the Ravens over at First Energy Stadium, 1 o'clock on Sunday. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This fan taking the long view of the Browns and this season.
Hi, my name's Richard Nichols, lifelong Browns fan, long-time watcher, first-time caller. The one thing I was going to say about the Browns this season is that I think while Cleveland fans do deserve a winning season, a 500 or a 9 or a 10-win season, by no stretch of the imagination is anything to be embarrassed about. To want more is just the natural instinct of fans. It's the first natural, knee-jerk reaction. But I think the Browns having a deep playoff run actually hurts any longevity we have with the team. Baker's banged up. Conklin's out for the season. There's enough guys on the team that have ailing injuries that I think these guys actually need those 8 months off to be able to recover, get ready, June and July for team exercises, et cetera, OTAs, and really get themselves prepared for the 2021 or the 2022 season.
All right, we appreciate the voicemail and the call. Don't be a stranger. The one thing I would say, Dan, is when you look at 10 or 9 wins, no, normally that wouldn't be a disappointment. But when the expectations were so high, I think for this roster and collection of what they put together, I think it would be disappointing. Everybody's gonna. The NFL is a league of attrition, as people have liked to start saying. Everybody has injuries, and everybody's going to need extra time to get healthy. It isn't just the Browns. So the playoffs and that kind of helping them, I just don't see it this year. You expect to win.
Yeah, if you have high expectations, you should be disappointed if the team doesn't meet them. And the other thing, too, is the NFL, like you said, it's a league of attrition, one thing, but it's also a league of opportunity. And you don't get, it's hard to be the Patriots, right? There's only been one dynasty like the Patriots. And if you expect the Browns to replicate that, it's not very likely. Now, that doesn't mean they can't be good for a long time, but when you have opportunities, you have to take advantage of them. I thought last year when Patrick Mahomes got hurt in the middle of the third quarter, I thought that was a missed opportunity to win that football game against a team that was better than you. And I think this year, if the state of the AFC North, if the Browns come out of this, not even making the playoffs, it has the potential to be a real missed opportunity, because this league, man, success can be so fleeting, and it takes the wrong injury at the wrong time to just ruin an entire season. And it's really hard to go win the Super Bowl in the NFL. So when those opportunities are there, you've got to take advantage of them.
Yeah, and again, there is not a dominant team in the AFC, and when you look even to the NFC, I think those three teams, the Packers, the Cardinals, and the Rams kind of iffy. I'm a little iffy on them. The Buccaneers have separated because the middle of the pack in the NFC, you know, they'd struggle if they played an AFC type schedule. The AFC has so many good teams, competent teams, that it looks bunched together, while the NFC has teams that maybe are a little better than the top ones in the AFC. But if they played in the AFC, they'd be bunched in the middle like everybody else.
Yeah, the NFC is so top heavy, and even you can ask questions about the top of that division or the top of that conference. Like Arizona has been so good, but it just feels like everybody's really hesitant to just fully embrace and believe in Arizona. Maybe that's because we watched Colt McCoy as their starting quarterback for a month and forgot how good Kyler is. And even Green Bay, Green Bay is probably the Super Bowl favorite right now, but I don't know. Are we 100% sure they're going to go win the Super Bowl? We've seen Aaron Rodgers and the Packers fall short over and over again. So it's wide open, and it's probably why Tom Brady's just going to go win himself another Super Bowl.
Yep, and the thing is, to your point, though, when you have the opportunity, you have to take advantage of it, and the opportunity is there for the Browns. All right, so I asked you earlier some of the tweaks to the Browns offense that you might think happen, and I have one that I'm going to lay on you here. We're going to hear from couple of the guys and we'll get to it, but my thought is if you play Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt in the same backfield, defenses have to find a way to deal with it. You can potentially attack all 53 and a half yards of width. You create matchup problems because one of those guys, if you motion them out, is likely going to have a linebacker on him. That's a mismatch. I just think there's a lot of things that a defense has to account for if you put both of those on the field at the same time. Kevin Stefanski and Kareem Hunt talked about, Chubb and Hunt in the same backfield together today. Here they
Those are all
on
things
that
we
topic.
talk about. We want to make sure whatever we do is sound in thinking and sound in schematically, those type of things. You're right. Those are two great players. So we got to make sure that they're involved so that we can be productive, like you mentioned, in the run game and in the pass game. I do think it's something you can do in this system, really any system, in terms of plugging those guys. I think we just want to be mindful and intentional about why we're doing what we're doing. If you do something like that, you want to have a good reason to do it and put those guys in position to succeed.
So Dan, what do you think? Is it a possibility?
It's something I've wanted to see, and I certainly can respect the thinking of you want to keep those guys fresh and be able to have them run the football late in a game. That was really how you were winning games in 2020. But when Kevin Stefanski says you've got to have a good reason to do something, there are plenty of good reasons to have Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb out there. One of them is just if I'm a defensive coordinator and I see both of those guys walk into the huddle, I'm nervous about who am I going to send in? How am I going to defend this? Where are these guys going to line up? Is this going to be a run or a pass? I think Nick Chubb has actually progressed as a pass catcher. He's certainly not on Kareem Hunt's level, but he is a guy that can catch the football and do something with it when it gets in his hands. So, anything that kind of can keep a defensive coordinator up at night, make him nervous when he sees two guys walk on the field. And I think we just saw in Baltimore the last time, the Browns really lacked guys who could just go and win matchups. Donovan Peoples-Jones hit the drop early. David Njoku, he did end up scoring a touchdown, but he had a series of plays where it was like, you just got to go win that matchup and get the football. And Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb have that ability. Both of them do. And so I think when you're kind of in a desperate time here where you've got to just go win football games, that's really kind of that's your checkmate, I guess. That's the way that you can go out there and put the defense in a nearly impossible position to be able to stop both of them.
And I think the timing of it with one of your tight ends potentially being banged up so you can't play the 13, it just makes sense. So, all right, Harrison Bryant, we'll go 2 backs, you go 2 wide receivers and a tight end. So it's different. People haven't seen it, so it's not able to be game planned for. The other thing is Kareem Hunt was asked about it. Here's his response to playing in the same backfield with Nick Chubb.
I mean, I would love it, but that's up to them. Whatever the coaches, decide. If they decide to put us both out there, I'm ready for that. And if not, then that's fine. I feel like we'll still be fine. So, I mean, the pros and cons. There's really none. It's only pros. I think it'll be a good thing.
Well, wouldn't the con could possibly be that you're able to help Nick stay super fresh for the fourth quarter if you guys kind of alternate, but you guys, right? And you probably feel you can overcome that too, right?
Yeah, I mean, most definitely, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to, help the team win. So if that means, switching off every other couple series to stay fresher or whatever they decide to do, that's cool. But whenever my number called, I'll be ready.
And Dan, the other thing I would say, about staying fresh in the fourth quarter, you don't have to do it all the time. It's a package, so you can. And again, to your point, if you bring it in certain situations, now a defensive coordinator, what do we do? There are a lot of things that you have to account for if both Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt are on the field at the same time.
And I think there's another element to this too that kind of helps maybe make it more palatable is that you can kind of trust Dearness Johnson. Last year Dearness came in and had a great game against Dallas, but it took him, he didn't necessarily show you he could be a guy that could carry the ball, multiple series or whatever. But this year, look, every time he's been on the field, he's been productive. He had that great game against Denver. I thought he looked good against New England, but before they kind of stopped running the ball in that game. And he's certainly not Nick Chubb or Kareem Hunt, but if you need to give those guys a rest, I think you can feel comfortable giving Dearness Johnson a series at some point in the game to keep those guys on the sideline. So I think his emergence almost makes it easier to say, all right, let's have these 2 guys on the field together because we don't have to worry as much about one giving the other a breather. We've got 3 backs who we can trust to carry the football.
Yeah, and do it effectively as well. Dan, Labbe, and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. We continue talking Browns when we return. We'll hear from Kevin Stefanski and Kareem Hunt just about the possibility of the Browns making the playoffs, as well as looking ahead to that Ravens game Sunday, 1 o'clock, First Energy Stadium. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns, getting ready for that matchup with the Ravens, 1 o'clock Sunday over at First Energy Stadium. Kevin Stefanski and Kareem Hunt on where the Browns stand in respect to making the playoffs this year.
We have to play better. We have to coach better. We have an opportunity here, and we got a big challenge right in front of us in Baltimore. So the expectations for all of us are high, and that's really where they should be. So I know it's always want to make it specific to one player, but I just feel like it's for all of us. This is a big opportunity.
We know we're a good football team, and we know we play together and limit the mistakes and dumb penalties and stuff. We can be really good. So we got to just keep battling.
And what do you think it's going to take to get this offense kind of back on track? It's been a while since you guys really put up, except for that Cincinnati game. It's been a stretch where you guys haven't put up a bunch of points.
I mean, we just got to, detail our work. We got to come out there and, everybody do their job each and every play. It takes 11 men on the field to, make a play successful.
And Dan Labbe, it's kind of interesting. You heard Kevin Stefanski mention an opportunity, and that's really the way they have to look at it.
Yeah, and you're going to hear that one game at a time, 1-0 every week mantra. But yeah, I mean, this is that sense of urgency time right now. Because of what happened on Sunday, because of where everything is, because of how jumbled everything is. You've got to go win as many football games as you can, and if you can figure out a way to go 4-1 and kind of see where you're at the end of the year, I don't think you'd be too disappointed with where you'd end up. That would get you to 10-7, and that's going to be a tough task. You've got obviously Green Bay. You might be playing Big Ben in his last game at Heinz Field on Monday Night Football. That's not going to be an easy game, no matter what state that Pittsburgh Steelers team is. You got Baltimore Sunday. You got Cincinnati. I mean, even the Raiders could be a tough game on a couple Saturdays from now. But you've just got to go out there and understand that there's still an opportunity for you to get where you want to go.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is last week we heard Andrew Berry saying the expectation is for Baker Mayfield to play his best football in the 5 remaining games of the season. That's what the Browns expect. Kevin Stefanski talked about that exact thing today.
I think that's the expectation for all of us, Nate, coaches, players, where we are in our season, and we all understand what's at stake and those type of things. But we're all looking forward to the challenge that we have in each one of these weeks, and starting this week versus Baltimore.
And Dan, I certainly would not be surprised if Baker Mayfield comes out in the final 5 games of the year and plays well. That's kind of the way he rolls.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, whatever that bar is, I don't know that it's looking like it was last year necessarily, where he was putting up top 5 quarterback stats over those last 6 weeks of the season. But if he's really efficient and he plays, like he did against Cincinnati, for example, statistically that wasn't a game that blows you away, but the offense moved the football, good mix of pass and run. And when Baker needed to make throws, he made throws. If that's the Baker Mayfield you get over the next 5 weeks, that's the Baker Mayfield that gives you a chance to win these games.
Yeah, and you know what? That's bottom line for a quarterback, win games. So it'll be back-to-back games for the Browns against the Ravens, that bye sandwiched in between them. You asked Kevin Stefanski how unique that is. Here's Kevin Stefanski on facing the same opponent 2 games in a row.
Yeah, it's a home and home. It's different. But I think the guys are excited about the challenge. It's a team, your division opponents so well, and we have a great amount of respect for them, and we're looking forward to this challenge.
Dan, the one thing is, with that bye in there for the Browns, they have the opportunity to throw some unique wrinkles at the Ravens.
Yeah, I mean, I almost liken it to a basketball playoff series, right? When you go out and you win the first game, you're not necessarily going to go and make adjustments, right? You're going to have some things ready, but you're going to see if what you did can work again in game 2. And you're going to kind of do it until it doesn't work. You don't want to outthink yourself. And I do wonder if the Ravens, are they going to come out and do this 10-man in the box stuff or 8 or 9-man in the box stuff against the Browns and try to make Baker Mayfield beat it in the passing game? And so the Browns kind of are in this position early in the game where they can counter it. They felt it. They know what it looks like. They know it can work against it. Do they go screen heavy? They figure out how to run the ball, and then you make the Ravens adjust. So that's sort of an advantage for the Browns, not just that they have the bye week, but also that they're going to get to make the first adjustment, and that adjustment gets made before the game even starts.
All right, so how do you think this one plays out? A game that the Browns have to have at home against the Ravens, who lost arguably one of their best defensive players in Marlon Humphrey. He is out for the year. So how do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, I think, and you can probably hear my dog giving his input right now too in the background. But my feeling was that they would maybe end up splitting this series. So I'm going to stick with that right now. My kind of gut instinct is the Browns figure out a way to win this game and sort of keep this season extending. There's a lot of built-in advantages to this. With the Ravens banged up, losing, like you said, another key player. Browns getting the bye week. They don't have to travel 2 weeks to prepare. They're getting healthier. I just think there's built-in advantages in this game for the Browns. And the last time these two teams played, it was 16-10. No matter how it got there, it was still a very close game. And so I think it swings in the Browns' favor this way.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I'm not sure. I wouldn't even venture a guess at what the score looks like at this point of the week. The one thing that I do hope is you have seen kind of the roadmap of how to defend Lamar Jackson, be aggressive, get after him. I think the Steelers had 7 or 8 sacks. So that must be part of the defensive game plan, I think.
Yeah, and you go back to that Miami Thursday night game. Lamar was getting MVP buzz before that game, and now he's really fallen off. And of course, he missed that Chicago game. But you hope that kind of keeps going. You hope that he doesn't figure it out and start to turn into Lamar Jackson again, or whatever. Have that effect when he steps into First Energy Stadium, where his eyes just light up because he loves playing against the Browns. But this defense played the best game that I think the Browns have ever played against him since he's taken over as a starter. They intercepted him 4 times. They contained him. He only made that one electric play. And I'm sure that they've been talking about that over and over again since it happened. So I think they've got a real chance to, continue. They're hitting Baltimore at a good time. Lamar's struggling. They continue to lose guys. At some point, they're just not going to have a next man up. And maybe that point is going to be on Sunday.
Dan Labbe, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. As always, Dan, thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it very much.
Yep, thanks for having me.
All right, Dan Labbe, make sure you read him. Pages of the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. We are going to continue talking Browns, getting ready for the Ravens. Kevan Arnold from the Voice of the Land podcast will join us talking Browns and maybe some of the adjustments that Kevin Stefanski has in mind for this offense. Sports4CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine and too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns, getting ready to face the Baltimore Ravens over at First Energy Stadium, 1 o'clock on Sunday. Stephen A. Smith on ESPN's First Take on what kind of quarterback Baker Mayfield is.
Anything that you can point to that is lacking with the Cleveland Browns, even with the offensive line. Have we not lamented at times how Baker Mayfield held onto the ball a little bit too long? How, he was sitting there and trying to make plays and ultimately was making boneheaded plays from time to time, or the requisite throws that you see a lot of guys with rifle arms being capable of making. He wasn't that guy capable of making. I'm simply saying he's not a scrub. He's a former #1 overall pick who, as far as I'm concerned, can play. He's got a lot of guts. I love listening to him in press conference. I think his honesty and candor should be applauded. I think the way he handled the Odell Beckham Jr. situation when Odell Beckham Jr.'s father put that video out about him, I thought he was completely in the right. I respect the hell out of Baker Mayfield. He's not a scrub. Right. But at the end of the day, when you look at teams and you say to a team, all of that talent surrounding these guys, I've said this before. What do you look at when you look at the Cleveland Browns? It comes back to Baker Mayfield. All of those questions that you throw out there, as legitimate as they are, because they are legitimate, it still brings us back to Baker Mayfield. Okay. He's not that guy when you're talking about competing for a Super Bowl. Not yet, anyway.
Let's welcome in Kevan Arnold from the Voice of the Land podcast. And that last little bit that Stephen A. said, not yet, I think is kind of the context that all of that needs to be listened into. I've said this before. Don't think you have an accurate read of what the ceiling is for Baker Mayfield. He was in dysfunction for the first 2 years, and he has been beat up. And you can say it's his non-throwing shoulder, and he can play through it. He's beat up, and since game 2 of this year.
And we've gone back and forth on whether they should have sat him down. They should have. They're in the right for playing him. We all know that you have to do your 1/11th, and the Browns have talked about it. We have talked about it in a way, you and I, Dave, in our conversations about this team and what has gone wrong with this offense in a year or two under the same coaching staff. Again, the broken record that we've mentioned time and time again. But ultimately, the game of football comes down to, and it's always going to be, whether rightfully or unrightfully so, it's going to come down to the coach and the quarterback getting all of the praise when things go well and a lot of the criticism, or if not all of it, when things go wrong. And right now, Baker is going out there for his team, playing through injury, trying to win these games. And hopefully the week off gave him some extra time to get those injuries truly right, and he can do a little bit more of what we know he is capable of, at least what we've seen him being capable of. We've seen those tight window throws still this season. We've seen him lead the team through difficult times, but he's going to have some of the best 5 games of his career for this team to have any sort of chance to make the playoffs, if not win the AFC North and get that home playoff game. Again, you can say it's right. We can debate if it's right or wrong to have it all on Baker. We've had the realistic conversations. The national media is going to look at the quarterback, and the quarterback's got to perform for this team to go anywhere.
Yeah, without question. And so let's take a look at this tweet from CBS Sports. Longest active scoring streak of fewer than 20 points. Not a list you want to be on. Jaguars number 1, 6 straight games under 20. Ravens, that was a surprise to me, 4 straight under 20. Browns 3, Giants 3. So, again, I guess what I'm saying here is don't expect a high-scoring game Sunday at First Energy Stadium with the Browns and the Ravens because both of them have been under 20 points the last 3 games. The Ravens have been 4. What that tells you, both offenses struggling.
If you look at almost the entire AFC North, it just looks like offenses are broken. The Bengals came back. They were down 24-0 yesterday. They got it to 24-22, and then they couldn't do anything again. Joe Burrow looking like Baker Mayfield, and with that offensive line that's had questions about it throughout the year, and even in his rookie year, he got beat up yesterday. And yes, the Steelers got the win 20-19. Maybe the Ravens get a little bit of a push there if they go for the tie, but John Harbaugh talking about how their secondary was hurt. He wanted to go for 2, so taking the chance to try to win at the end. But you haven't seen high-scoring affairs or high-scoring point totals from the AFC North a lot the last couple of weeks, especially Steelers, Browns, and you see the Ravens up there, 4 straight games less than 20 points. So a lot of these teams in the AFC North, it's going to have to be figured out, and I think defenses are showing why this division is so difficult. The offenses are going to have to find a way to play NFL strong offense throughout this season and throughout these last 5 games to have anybody come out on top of this division. If the Browns can find those answers, I think they give themselves an excellent shot at doing so.
Well, Kevin Stefanski talked about kind of making adjustments to the offense coming out of the bye week today. Here's Kevin Stefanski on that topic.
I think for us, we need to produce on offense, and very simply, we need to score points. So we really do try to look at every avenue, Doug, and things that we have done, maybe things that we really haven't done. You do need to look at all of them, push it in the middle of the table, and then have that conversation and see what sticks.
And Kevan, they need similar to what they did last year, where they figured it out with the bye week. I don't know if it's possible. It's different this year by hit at a later time. Kevin Stefanski and Baker Mayfield have more time to work together. They need to regenerate, regroup, and get this offense moving.
They absolutely do. Rejuvenation, reinvigoration, reset button, however you want to put it. Something has got to jumpstart the engine that is this Browns offense to get going. Guys got to catch the ball. The offensive line has got to block. They got to open up the holes. Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb, Dearness Johnson, even Demetric Felton, whether in the running back spot or out at wide receiver, they got to hit the hole when it's there. Everybody's got to do their 111. I think that's kind of the theme for these last 5 weeks for this offense. And you and I talked about it last week about, these guys are saying the right things, or that they don't really say much when they're saying a lot in these press conferences. It's one thing to talk about it. It's another thing to be about it. They recognize that. They know that. They have to go execute, and the theme moving forward for these last 5 weeks has got to be, we got to do our 111 to help this offense, help this defense, help our special teams perform and be successful in order to go 1-0 each and every single week, taking a week-by-week process, as cliche as that may sound.
The other thing, Kareem Hunt talked about how he's feeling. Remember, came back from that high ankle sprain, calf injury. It was calf injury last week against the Ravens. He talked about how he's feeling coming out of the bye.
I felt good enough to play, and I'm definitely, still, working every day to get better and more healthy, and that's what I'm gonna have to do. So I spend a lot of time, rehabbing and stuff this bye week, and trying to come back and be, stronger just down the last stretch.
Do you feel like, coming off the bye, getting that little bit of extra time, you'll be ready for, a greater workload in this game this coming?
Yeah, I believe so for sure. Definitely, that's the plan.
And again, all hands on deck. They need Kareem Hunt for as many plays as they deem necessary.
And when that Ravens defense comes after Baker, because they're going to come after him, and I think you and Dan were talking about how will they actually continue and stay with this 10-man in the box with some of their injuries in the defensive backfield, and to try to stop the run, force Baker Mayfield to beat them. Well, not only are they going to do that, they're going to try to put pressure to kind of take some of the pressure off of some of the guys they have to shift around in their defensive backfield for the Ravens this week, because they know that there is talent in that wide receiver room. And, the receivers catching a few of those balls maybe changes the complexion the last time these two teams meet, especially on that opening drive, that drop by Donovan Peoples-Jones and a couple other drops throughout the game. It's going to come down to a guy like Kareem Hunt coming out of the backfield, those screen passes. Can you get those set? For some reason, since 1999, we've seen it ebb and flow, but more so on the negative side or unsuccessful side of things. The Browns struggle with wide receiver screens, running back screens. They've got better with it under Kevin Stefanski at first. This year, it's kind of regressed a little bit. If you watch some of these games, if they can get that going, get some of those easy dump-off completions for Baker, he gets some confidence. The whole team gets some confidence. And then maybe that offense really starts to flow when you start to see some of those bigger plays downfield as well. And the defense having to back off on their pressure because they're getting beat with that pressure with some of these screens.
Yeah, the screen game would be a big help against the Ravens. They like to get after it. All right, Kevan, Arnold and I are going to step aside, take one more time out on the other side of the break. We will hear from Kevin Stefanski on defending Lamar Jackson, what he saw against the Steelers as well as the Browns. We'll also take a dive into how this one plays out between the Browns and Ravens. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. Browns getting ready to face Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, First Energy Stadium, 1 o'clock Sunday. Kevin Stefanski talked about what he saw against Lamar Jackson against Steelers yesterday, as well as against the Browns last week.
He's a great player, Mary Kay. You're never going to shut him out. I mean, he makes plays. That last drive, they did a nice job of getting in position to scored, and obviously it was a great play with that 2-point conversion on both sides. So, but with Lamar Jackson, as you know, he's going to make plays, and it's our job to limit them. And I think there's some really good things that we can work off of from our last ball game.
And did you also see opportunities there? There again, he was sacked 7 times. So did you see some things on film where you can get to him?
Yeah, I thought Pittsburgh did a nice job. They varied their package up in terms of pressure and coverage, and ultimately they got him on the ground. Now he's hard to get on the ground. The first guy oftentimes does not succeed, so you really have to be relentless to the football when you're playing Lamar.
The one thing that you did see quite a bit, Kevin, some turnovers again, so that'll be key for the Browns defense.
That's been the key since kind of, the early part of this season when they were on that bit of a roller coaster of consistency, as this team has been this entire season, the consistently inconsistent team that we have seen. One thing that I know the defense has put a lot of emphasis on, when they were getting some of that early pressure and some of those early sacks, they weren't getting a lot of turnovers. Now they got those 4 interceptions. The offense couldn't capitalize on it. Lamar is still kind of showing that he is prone to those interceptions. Right now he's in that kind of state of play, but he can always escape and make those plays downfield. We saw it countless times with Clowney. You saw how frustrated he was. Myles Garrett, shaking his hand because they, just kind of tipping his cap, just being able to make that play to Mark Andrews in the end zone. And you saw it yesterday. Yeah, the Steelers were able to get a lot more sacks than the Browns were in their game, but there were still times where another Defense of the Year candidate, year after year, TJ Watt, he's going after him and he still can't get Lamar Jackson on the ground. So it's changing up those looks. It's finding a way to somehow contain him in the pocket to get that pressure home and get it home quick, because once he gets outside and you're having to chase after him, as fast as you may be, he just is so electric and has that it factor once he gets out of the pocket where he can make those plays down the field, or he can, kind of find that gap that's opened up at that point with the playground-like, backyard-like football that ends up being played in those cases, to then run down the field, make a big play with his legs, if not score a touchdown. And when we saw that last time at First Energy Stadium on Monday Night Football in that epic game last year. So that is something the Browns are going to have to balance. Contain him inside the pocket, get him on the ground, not allow him to gain confidence by being so electric with his legs, as we know he is. It's easier said than done, Dave, but that's got to be the key, and they got to find a way to maybe change up their looks from what they showed 2 weeks ago.
All right, what do you think the Browns need to get it done? They need this win. A loss, I won't say it ends the season, but it comes pretty darn close. What do they need to do to make sure they beat the Ravens?
The desperate team that we saw kind of against Cincinnati, and just how they were defensively, offensively, even special teams. It just seemed to all come together. That's what they really need to do. It needs to be all 3 phases of the game, the glue pieces kind of coming together and finally playing good football all together, and not just one quarter before the next or one game to the next. It's got to be game to game to game moving forward, and it's got to start this week. We got to see a team that we know is going to say that they're desperate and they know it's a must-win situation. They're only focused on winning this week, but they have to go out there and do that. We can talk about they could use the screens like we talked about earlier. Got to get the pressure on Lamar Jackson. Got to be on your P's and Q's if you're in the defensive backfield, especially taking away Mark Andrews, Lamar Jackson's main target. We can talk about all X and O's we want, but this team has got to have that will, got to have that fight if they really have playoffs on the mind, and that's their goal, to get into the tournament. You got to see a desperate team that's willing to go out there and lay it all out on the line for each one of their teammates and do their 111th in every phase of the game.
Kevin Arnold from the Voice of the Land podcast. Kevin, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Dave. You guys have a great week.
All right, Kevin Arnold. giving us the insight on the Browns and Ravens. That'll do it for this edition of Sports4CLE. We will see you again tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Scheduled guests, Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter from the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Ashley Bastock, Browns beat reporter from the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com as well. That is tomorrow at 4 o'clock. We will see you then. Have a great night, everybody.